Hi friends, welcome back to i-Tutor NCERT series. Today, we will be discussing Class 8 Geography Chapter 2 Land, Soil, Water, Natural Vegetation and Wildlife Resources. Let's begin. First one is land. What is land? Land is among the most important natural resources. It covers only about 30% of the total area of the earth's surface. Okay, so the land covers only about 30% of the total area of the earth's surface, and all parts of this small percentage are not habitable. Okay, the uneven distribution of population in different parts of the world is mainly due to varied characteristics of land and climate. We know the climate and land are the main characteristics of the population distribution. The arid topography, steep slopes of the mountains, low-lying areas susceptible to waterlogging, deserts areas, thick forested areas are normally sparsely populated or uninhabited. Okay, so in these places the population was very less. Okay, the population is very less. Plains and river valleys offer suitable land for agriculture. Hence, these are the densely populated areas of the world. Okay, so the plains and the river valleys, they gave more suitable land for agriculture. Okay, so that's why most of the people or most of the populated areas are areas of the world are located on these regions. Now, what is land? 90% of the world's population occupies only 30% of land area. So, the 90% of the population occupy in 30% of the land area. The remaining 70% of the land is either sparsely populated or uninhabited. Okay. Now, land use. Land is used for different purposes such as agriculture, forestry, mining, building houses, roads and setting up of industries. This is commonly termed as land use. Okay, so this is called land use. That is how we use the land. The use of land is determined by physical factors such as topography, soil, climate, minerals and availability of water. So these are important factors that determine the land use. First one is topography, then soil, climate, minerals and availability of water. Human factors such as population and technology are also important determination of the land use pattern. Okay. So the next one is human factor such as population and technology. Okay, the physical factors are topography, soil, climate, minerals and availability of water, and human factors are population and technology. Okay, so this determines the land use. The use of land is determined by physical. Now, land can be also classified on the basis of ownership. Okay, so the land is also classified on the basis of ownership, that is private and community land. Okay, first one is private land and second one is community land. Private land is owned by individuals, whereas community land is owned by community for common uses like collection of fodder, fruits, nuts or medicinal herbs. So what is private land? Private land means it's owned by a individual. Okay, private means it's owned by individual. And community land means it's owned by community. Okay, for common uses like collection of fodder, food, nuts or medicinal herbs. These community lands are also called common property resources. So the community land are also called common property resources. Okay, because they are used commonly for the collection of fodders, fruits, nuts, medicines, etc. etc. Okay, so that's why they are known as common property resources. So on the basis of ownership, the land can be classified into two. First one is private land, which is owned by individuals, and second one is community land and owned by community. Now, people and their demands are ever growing, but the availability of land is limited. Okay, we know the greed of the people or the demands of the people are ever growing, but the availability of land is limited. The quality of the land also differs from place to place. People started encroaching the common land to build up commercial areas, housing complex in urban areas, and to expand the agricultural land in the rural areas. Today, the vast changes in the land use pattern also reflect the cultural changes in our society. Land degradation, landslides, soil erosion, desertification are the major threats to the environment because of the expansion of agriculture and constructive activities. So because of the agriculture and other constructive activities, we are facing major threats like land degradation, landslides, soil erosion and desertification. Okay, so these are some of the threats we face today due to the land expansion and agriculture, then construction activities, etc. Okay. Now, how to conserve the land resource? Conservation of land resources. Growing population and the ever-growing demand has led to a large-scale destruction of forest cover and arable land and has created a fear of losing these natural resources. So the population of our country is growing day by day. So this growing population and the ever-growing demands, this led to a large-scale destruction of forest cover. Okay, so this led to a large-scale destruction of the forest and arable land and has created a fear of losing the natural resources. Therefore, the present rate of degradation of land must be checked. Afforestation, land reclamation, regulated use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers and checks on overgrazing are some of the common methods used to conserve the land resources. Okay, so these are some methods to conserve the land resources. What are they? First one, afforestation. Okay, growing trees or planting trees. Stop cutting trees. Okay, that is afforestation. Planting trees or growing trees or stop cutting the trees. That is afforestation, making a forest. And land reclamation, regulated use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers because these can harm the soil. Okay, these pesticides and fertilizers harmfully affect the soil and it lowers the soil fertility. And overgrazing. These are some common methods used to conserve the land resources. Okay. Now, what is landslides? Have you heard about this word landslides? Yeah, landslides are simply defined as the mass movement of a rock, debris or earth down a slope. Okay, so look at this picture. This is an example or this is a picture view of landslide. It's defined as the mass movement of a rock, debris or earth down a slope. They often take place in conjunction with earthquakes, floods and volcanoes. A prolonged spell of rainfall can cause heavy landslides that can block the flow of river for quite some time. The formation of river blocks can cause havoc to the settlement downstream on its bursting. In the hilly terrains, landslides have been major and widely spread natural disasters that often strike life and property and occupy a position of the major concern. Okay. We already saw many newspaper reports like on landslides, especially last year in Kerala, Wayanad. Okay, it also faced a landslide. It's a major problem. Okay, and many people lost their lives and properties due to this landslide. Now, mitigation mechanism. Advancement in scientific techniques has empowered us to understand what factors cause landslides and how to manage them. Some broad mitigation techniques of landslides are follow. Hazard mapping to locate areas prone to landslides. Hence, such areas can be avoided for building settlements. Okay, so these are some mitigation mechanisms to avoid landslides. Second one, construction of retention wall to stop land from slipping. Increase in the vegetation cover to arrest landslides. And final one, the surface drainage control works to control the movement of landslide along with rainwater and spring flows. Okay, so these are some methods to control the landslides. Okay. Next one is soil. The thin layer of grainy substance covering the surface of the earth is called soil. So what is soil? What is the definition of soil? The thin layer of grainy substance that cover the surface of the earth, that is called soil. It is closely linked to land. Landforms determine the types of soil. Soil is made up of organic matter, minerals and weathered rocks found on the earth. This happens through the process of weathering. Okay, so how is soil forming? This is happened through the process of weathering. Okay, and this is the soil consists of organic matters, minerals and weathered rocks. Now, the right mix of minerals and organic matter makes the soil fertile. Okay, if the mineral mix is in a right concentration, then the soil is called a fertile soil. Okay, Now, look at this picture. This one is parent rock. Okay, this is parent rock. When the parent rock undergoing weathering process, then it forms soil. Then second one is weathered rock material. Okay, this portion is called weathered rock material. And this is subsoil, and it consists of sand, silt and clay. And the final one is topsoil with the humus and vegetation. Okay. Now, factors of soil formation. The major factors of soil formation are the nature of parent rock and the climatic factors. Okay, the first one is nature of parent rock and the climatic factors. Other factors such as topography, role of organic material and time taken for the composition of soil formation. Okay, so these are the factors which affect the formation of a soil and which classify the nature of a soil. All these differ from place to place. Okay, so the parent rock, nature of parent rock, the climatic factors and topography, role of organic material and time taken for the composition of soil. So these are differ from place to place, and they are the main factors which cause for the formation of soil. Now, look at this soil. First one, how climate affects soil. Temperature, rainfall influence, rate of weathering and humus formation. Okay, so the climate affect on the temperature of soil, rainfall influence rate of weathering and humus formation. Okay, so this is the influence of climate. Now, time. The time determines the thickness of the soil profile. Okay, so the time determines the thickness of the soil profile. Next one, flora, fauna and microorganism. These affected the rate of humus formation. Okay, so these determine the rate of humus formation. It determine how the soil is, or is the soil is fertile or not. And next one is relief. Altitude and slope determine. Okay, there is S. Altitude and slope determine accumulation of the soil. And final one is parent rock. The parent rock determines the color, texture, chemical properties, mineral content and permeability. Okay, so these are some components which determine the characteristics of soil. First one, climate, temperature, rainfall. This influence rate of weathering and humus formation. Okay, temperature and rainfall. Then next one is time. The time determines the thickness of soil profile. Then flora, fauna and microorganism. These affect the rate of humus formation. Okay, affect the fertility rate. Now, relief. Altitude and slope determine the accumulation of soil. And final one is parent rock, determine the color, texture, chemical properties, mineral content and permeability. Now, degradation of soil and conservation measures. Soil erosion and depletion are the major threats to soil as a resource. Both human and natural factors can lead to degradation of soil. Okay, so the soil degradation are caused by both human factors and natural factors. Factors which led to soil degradation are deforestation, overgrazing, overuse of chemical fertilizers or pesticide, rainwash, landslides and floods. Okay, so these are the main things, or these are the main factors which cause for the, or which lead to the soil degradation. What are they? First one is deforestation, overgrazing, overuse of chemical fertilizers or pesticides, rainwash, landslides and floods. Now, some methods of soil conservation are listed below. Okay, now let's look through some methods of soil conservation. First one is mulching. The bare ground between plants is covered with a layer of organic matter like a straw. It helps to retain soil moisture. So this process is called mulching. Okay, so what is mulching? The bare ground between plants is covered with a layers of organic matters like a straw, and this helps to retain the soil moisture. Second one is contour barriers. Stones, grass, soil are used to build barriers along contours. Trenches are made in front of these barriers to collect water. Okay, so the second method is contour barriers. Next one is a rock dam. Rocks are piled up to slow down the flow of water. So the rocks are piled up for what? To slow down the flow of water. This prevents gullies and further soil loss. Okay, so this prevent the gullies and then further soil loss. Okay, this prevent the soil loss. Next one is terrace farming. Broad flat steps or terrace are made on the steep slopes so that flat surfaces are available to grow crops. They reduce surface runoff and soil erosion. So they reduce terrace farming, reduce the surface runoff and soil erosion. Next one is intercropping. Different crops are grown in alternate rows and are sown at different times to protect the soil from rainwash. Okay, so different crops are grown in alternate rows and are sown at different times. This protect the soil from rainwash. Okay, so that's called intercropping. And next one is contour plowing. What is contour plowing? Plowing parallel to the contours of a hill slope to form a natural barrier for water to flow down the slope. Okay, so that is called contour plowing. And final one is shelter belts. What is shelter belts? In the coastal and dry region, row of trees are planted to check the wind movement to protect soil cover. So that is called shelter belts. Look at this picture. This is an example of contour plowing. Okay, this picture shows the contour plowing and this is terrace farming. Okay. Now moving forward. Next one is water. Okay, let's know what is water. We know water is an important component for our life. It's a vital renewable natural resource. Okay, water is a vital renewable natural resource. We already discussed in the previous class about the natural resource and other resources. So, water is a renewable natural resource. 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered with water. It's therefore approximately called the water planet. So, that's why the Earth is known as water planet. It was in the primitive oceans that life began almost 3.5 billion years back. Even today, the oceans covers 2/3 of the Earth's surface and support a rich variety of plant and animal life. The ocean water is, however, saline and not fit for human consumption. Fresh water accounts only about 2.7%. So, the amount of fresh water available is only 2.7%, and nearly 70% of this occur as ice sheet. Okay, so in this 2.7%, nearly 70% is occur in ice sheet and glaciers in Antarctica, Greenland and mountain region. Due to their location, they are inaccessible. Okay, so this 70% water is very hard to access. So they are inaccessible, and only 1% of fresh water is available and fit for human use. It is found as the groundwater, as surface water in rivers and lakes, and as water vapor in the atmosphere. So only 1% of the fresh water is available and fit for human use. So it's found as groundwater, surface water in the rivers and lakes, and as water vapor in the atmosphere. Okay, so that's the amount of water available in our earth. The 2/3 of our earth is water, but the fresh water is very less for our use. Fresh water is therefore the most precious substance on the earth. Water can neither be added nor subtracted from the earth. Its total volume remains constant. Its abundance only seems to vary because it is in constant motion, cycling through the oceans, the air, the land and back again through the process of evaporation, precipitation and runoff. Okay, we know the process of evaporation and precipitation and the runoff process. So this you already know, and it is referred as the water cycle. Okay, so the water is circulating in a foam, so that is called a water cycle. Okay, it going through the process of evaporation, precipitation and runoff. Now, human use huge amounts of water not only for drinking and washing but also in process of production. Water for agriculture, industries generating electricity through reservoirs of dams or other usages. Increasing population, rising demands of food and cash crops, increasing urbanization and rising standard of living are the major factors leading to the shortage in supply of fresh water, either due to drying up of water resources or water pollution. Okay, so these may cause ultimately for the water pollution. Okay. Now, problems of water availability. There is scarcity of water in many regions of the world. Most of Africa, West Asia, South Asia, parts of Western USA, Northwest Mexico, parts of South America and entire Australia are facing shortage in freshwater supply. Okay, so these countries, so these continents are facing shortage in the freshwater supply. Countries located in climatic zones most susceptible to droughts face great problems of water scarcity. Thus, water shortage may be a consequence of variation in seasonal or annual precipitation, or the scarcity is caused by overexploitation and contamination of water resources. Okay, so this is the main reason, okay, or this is the main problem we are facing. Look at this. Amreli city in Saurashtra region with a population of 1.25 lakhs is completely dependent on purchasing water from the nearby talukas. So, the Amreli city, which is located in the Saurashtra region, and the population is 1.25 lakhs. They completely depend purchasing water from the nearby talukas. So, the water scarcity or water shortage is very high in that region. How to conserve the water resources or conservation of water resources. Access to clean and adequate water sources is a major problem facing the world today. Steps have to be taken to conserve these dwindling resources. Even though water is a renewable resource, its overuse and pollution make it unfit for use. We know water is a renewable resource, but the overuse and pollution make it unfit for use. Discharge of untreated or partially treated sewage, agriculture chemicals and industrial effluents in water bodies are major contaminants. They pollute water with nitrates, metals and pesticides. Most of these chemicals are non-biodegradable and reach human bodies through water. Water pollution can be controlled by treating these effluents suitably before releasing them in water bodies. Forest and other vegetation cover slow the surface runoff and replenish underground water. Water harvesting is another method to save surface runoff. The canals used for irrigating fields should be properly lined to minimize losses by water seepage. Sprinklers effectively irrigate the area by checking water losses through seepage and evaporation. In dry regions with high rates of evaporation, drip or trickle irrigation is very useful. So these are some methods to conserve the water resources. Okay. The valuable water resource can therefore be conserved by adopting these means of irrigation. So we should conserve the water resources, otherwise we will face the water scarcity. Now, natural vegetation and wildlife. Natural vegetation and wildlife exist only in narrow zones of contact between the lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere, and we call biosphere. Okay, so where the lithosphere, the hydrosphere and the atmosphere meet, and these places or this region is called a biosphere, and the natural vegetation exists only in this zone. In the biosphere, living beings are interrelated and interdependent on each other for survival. This life supporting system is known as ecosystem. Okay, so the living beings are interrelated and interdependent on each other for survival, and this life supporting system, this is called ecosystem. This is known as ecosystem. Vegetation and wildlife are valuable resources. Plants provide us with timber, give shelter to animals, produce oxygen we breathe, protect soils, so essential for growing crops, act as shelter belts, helps in storage of underground water, give us fruits, nuts, latex, terpene, oil, gum, medicinal plants, etc. 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 Also, the paper that is so essential for your studies. Okay, so these are the uses of plants. These are innumerable uses of plants, and you can add some more. Wildlife includes animals, birds, insects as well as the aquatic life forms. They provide us milk, meat, hides and wool. Insects like bees provide us honey, help in pollination of flower and have an important role to play as decomposers in the ecosystem. Okay, so these are the uses of plants and animals and other insects. The birds feed on insects and act as decomposers as well. Vulture, due to its ability to feed on dead livestock, is a scavenger and considered a vital cleanser of the environment. So animals, big or small, all are integral to maintain the balance in the ecosystem. So everyone or everything is interconnected and they are maintaining the balance of the ecosystem. Okay, if anything happen to the balance of this belt, then the entire system will collapse. Now, vultures in the Indian subcontinent were dying of kidney failure shortly after scavenging livestock treated with diclofenac, a painkiller that is similar to aspirin or ibuprofen. Okay, so the vulture population is declining in India. Why? Because they are consuming the livestock and they are treated with a diclofenac. It's a painkiller. Okay, so it cause kidney failure in the vultures. Okay. Now moving forward, distribution of natural vegetation. The growth of vegetation depends primarily on temperature and moisture. The major vegetation types of the world are grouped as forest, grassland, scrubs and tundra. We already discussed about these vegetation types. Okay. In areas of heavy rainfall, huge trees may thrive. The forests are thus associated with areas having abundant water supply. As the amount of moisture decreases, the size of trees and their density reduces. Okay, so if the amount of moisture decreases, then what happens? The size of trees and their density reduce. Short-stemmed trees and grasses grow in regions of moderate rainfall, forming the grasslands of the world. So, if the amount of rainfall is moderate, then what happens? There, vegetation is like short-stemmed trees and grasses. So, the vegetation is known as grassland vegetation. Thorny shrubs and scrubs grow in dry areas in low rainfall. Okay, we already discussed about that too. Because the thorny shrubs and scrubs, they are grown in the dry areas. And why they are thorny? Because they need to control the water loss, okay, through the process of evaporation. So that's why the plants in desert region or dry regions are shown in thorny surface. Now, in such areas, plants have deep roots and leaves with thorny and waxy surface. Okay, that's we already discussed. To reduce what? To reduce loss of moisture through transpiration. Okay. Tundra vegetation of cold polar region comprises of mosses and lichens. Okay. So, look at this. First one is heavy rainfall, huge trees. Next one is if the amount of moisture decreases, then the size of trees and their density reduce. That is short-stemmed trees and grasses are seen in moderate rainfall region. That is called grassland. Then thorny shrubs and scrubs are seen in very dry region, desert regions. Next, the tundra vegetation is seen in the cold region or cold polar regions. Okay, they comprise of mosses and lichens. So this is the vegetation type. Forests are broadly classified as evergreen and deciduous forest. Okay, so evergreen forest and deciduous forest, depending on when they shed their leaves. Okay, if the forests are seen evergreen or it does not shed their leaves for a time, then it is called evergreen forest. Okay, the evergreen forest do not shed their leaves simultaneously in any particular season. Okay, so that is called evergreen. Okay, they are always seen as green color, so that's why they are known as evergreen forest. They didn't shed their leaves simultaneously. Then, what is deciduous forest? If the trees shed their leaves in a particular season to conserve loss of moisture through the transpiration, then these forests are called deciduous forest. Okay, so the deciduous forest shed their leaves in a particular season to conserve loss of moisture. Both types of forests are further classified as tropical or temperate based on their location in different latitudes. Okay, if the forests are located in the tropical region, then it's called a tropical evergreen forest and a tropical deciduous forest. And if they are located in the temperate region, it's called a temperate evergreen forest and a temperate deciduous forest. And it's because of the latitudes. Today, there are many more people in the world than there were 2 centuries back. To feed the growing numbers, large areas of forest have been cleared to grow crops. Forest cover all over the world is vanished rapidly. There is an urgent need to conserve this valuable resource. Okay, so we need to conserve this valuable resource, conserve our forest and our ecosystem. Otherwise, we have to face very consequences. Now, conservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. Forests are our wealth. Plants give shelter to the animals and together they maintain the ecosystem. Changes of climate and human interfaces can cause the loss of natural habitat for the plants and animals. Many species have become vulnerable or endangered, and some are the verge of extinction. Deforestation, soil erosion, constructional activities, forest fires, tsunami, and landslides are natural factors which accelerate the process of extinction of these resources. So these are some causes which accelerate the process of extinction. One of the major concerns is poaching. which result in sharp decline in the numbers of particular species. The animals are posed for collection and illegal trade for hides, skins, nails, teeth, horns, as well as feathers. Okay, so the animals are posed for these things like hides, skins, nails, etc. Some of these animals are tiger, lion, elephant, deer, blackback, crocodile, rhinoceros, snow leopard, ostrich, and peacock. Okay, so there are many more animals. They are illegally traded. These can be conserved by increasing awareness. Okay, we should conserve these animals, otherwise our ecosystem will collapse. There are some news prints, news cuttings. This shows the collapse of ecosystem. Now, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves are made to protect our natural vegetation and wildlife. So now let's look some protection methods. Natural parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserve. These are made to protect our natural vegetation and wildlife. Conservation of creeks, lakes, and wetlands is necessary to save the precious resource from depletion. There is a balance in the environment if the relative number of the species is not disturbed. Okay, so if the relative number of species are not disturbed, then there is a balance in the environment. Human activities in several parts of the world have disturbed the natural habitats of many species. Due to indiscriminate killing, several birds and animals have either become extinct or are on the verge of extinction. Okay, we already know about the Asiatic cheetah. Okay, so it already extincted, but now we introduce it back to the India from Africa. Yeah. Awareness programs like social forestry and One Maholsava should be encouraged at the regional and community level. So these programs like social forestry and One Maholsava, we should encourage these programs in the community level. School children should be encouraged to bird watch and visit nature camps so that they appreciate the habitat of varied species. Many countries have passed laws against the trade as well as killing of birds, animals. In India, killing lions, tigers, deers, great Indian bastards, and peacock is illegal. Okay. Now, CITES. What is CITES? The Conservation on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. This is known as CITES. An international convention, CITES, has been established that lists several species of animals and birds in which trade is prohibited. So the CITES prohibit many animals and birds trade. Conservation of plant and animals is an ethical duty of every citizen. The CITES is an international agreement between governments. It aims to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants does not threaten their survival. Roughly 5,000 species of animals and 28,000 species of plants are protected. Okay, so the CITES protected 5,000 species of animals and 28,000 of species of plants. Bears, dolphins, cacti, corals, orchids, and aloes are some examples. Okay, so these are some examples of the CITES protected species. Okay, look at this. What is biosphere reserve? Series of protected areas linked through a global network intended to demonstrate the relationship between conservation and development. So this is called biosphere reserves. So what is biosphere reserve? This is a series of protected area. Okay, biosphere reserves are a series of protected areas linked through a global network intended to demonstrate the relationship between conservation and development. Okay, so they intended to demonstrate the relationship between the conservation and development. Okay, so that's all about this chapter. If you have any doubts, you can comment below. For more videos, do like, share, subscribe.